So welcome again to effective questioning. So as far as a teacher is concerned or a member of support staff, we talk about questioning being underdeveloped. And I remember as an advanced practitioner a few years ago, I went to some training and the first thing that someone said was, discuss. Questioning is underdeveloped in most classrooms. So my feeling is, what's your thought about that? Is questioning underdeveloped? Why do we find it difficult? What are the problems around it? Are we expecting too much from our students with our questions? Or what? I've been told that we should be 50% asking questions as the member of staff and 50% expecting students to ask questions. Well, I know that in my experience, it's very difficult to get a learner to, you can't force them to ask questions, and some ask questions all the time, and others never do. So I think that's what the expression here really means, that it's underdeveloped and that we aren't given the opportunity to explore lots of the reasons why some students do, some students don't, and what we can do to perhaps improve upon that. And, as far as my position is concerned, if you can get questioning in lots of different ways, you're going to get lots of different answers from lots of different people, because I think that the straightforward Q&A, you ask a question and wait for the answer, that can get a bit boring for some people in class. It needs to be mixed up a little bit. So I want you now to consider at least 3 reasons why teachers ask questions of the learners. So think of at least 3 reasons and complete it in your chat or questions area that you can see on the screen on the side. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to think about that. You can just be a one-word answer. I'm happy to do that. And while you're doing it, I will just watch when they come in. Okay. Yes, we've got someone that says, I'm terrible at it. Well, that's fine. You're terrible at questioning. And you know what? I get what you're saying there, because sometimes you forget to question, and you kind of do your delivery, you know what you want to get across to your students, and so you forget to ask questions, and so that's difficult. We've got other people saying to check understanding, absolutely, to re-engage, for sure, to check on learning, absolutely, monitor progress. That's good, because that's not just what you've learned at the end of the lesson, but as you're going through the lesson is really good. Check that they're listening, definitely. Variety of delivery. I like all of these, well done. So elicit a response from some learners to promote engagement. Yes, the quiet ones. Okay, so we've got assess retention of learning. You know, that's kind of like a formative assessment, isn't it? Refocus, keep the interest going, develop the learning. Yes, Cheryl, it is good to chat, most definitely. And this is a really nice one too, to allow learners to express their understanding. You know, if you've got learners that find it difficult to say what they mean, they've got to be able to do that sometimes in ways other than writing. But other points here to see what they already know, so that's prior knowledge. Yes, I like that. To promote discussion. Wow, we've got a massive amount here. Well done. I really like the way you've just jumped in with it. Brilliant. Clarify the point, recall understanding. Great. So there are lots and lots of reasons why teachers ask questions of learners. Now, I've just picked up 6, and they're very good alongside the ones that you've said. And so here are mine. We've got encourage discussion and debate, which is great, and that kind of follows with the it's good to chat, isn't it? I like the fact that it's an opportunity to contextualise, because especially with things like functional skills or GCSE maths and English, sometimes the question is always like, why do I need to know this stuff? And it could be that you ask the question, when might you use this in your other life, and give some clues as to how you might. So that's a good opportunity to contextualise. This is a good one, to ensure everyone participates, which a couple of people alluded to keep people involved and included within the lesson. And of course, that's absolutely key. Here's a few more to ensure everyone understands, which you've put in your list as well. To provide opportunities for differentiation, and someone else has said that in the list, great, and to help class management. I'm all for class management. That's what floats my boat, is a bit of class management. And I believe that when you see energy getting low in class, that can be a spiral for behaviour issues, and certainly for lack of learning. And by getting people back on board engaging with some sort of questioning activity is a really good way to help your class management. But I must also point out that when I've done this training sort of face-to-face before, and I've asked people why you might nominate someone to answer questions, they said it's just to see if they're awake. And I know it's not really about knowing if they are listening, but are you still with us? So that's good. But in my experience, when you've got a lot of students in the class, you've got to be able to meet all of their needs, and that's not easy to do when the questioning is very straightforward and the way that they've always done it. So it's great for the hard to reach young people if you give an opportunity to bring in some movement and pace with activities, and maybe time-bound questioning activities. So an element of competition can be included there. I know that when I work with behaviourally challenging students, such as ADHD or any others where they are disengaged, it creates more energy and the time goes much faster, and as a result of that, the lesson seems much more fun and it's easier to participate, and questioning is all part of that. So things that help, I think, and this goes back to the contextualizing it. If you can ask the questions, including words like what's in it for me and why might you need to know this, what impact will it have if this or that, which part of your life. And I recall a couple of years ago when I was doing some teaching maths, and we were talking about compound interest and simple interest and the difference between them. And for many 16 and 17-year-olds and 14 and 15-year-olds, there's nothing in that they can understand, relate it to their everyday world, unless they're very entrepreneurial and they've running a small business on the side or something. But the point really is being able to explain why, what, where, and then, and go off the tack if you need to. Why might you need to know this? Lots of young people have aspirations for ownership or for business building, whatever it might be. And when we talked about simple interest and compound interest, they got the idea of what the difference was and how it might affect them, what they may make choices towards. So when you're framing your questions, make it seem like the learner is going to know what's in it for them to understand the answer. And obviously, visually, we need to be differentiating. And in this slide here, I've kind of given you an example of how to differentiate using a picture or a nice visual aid, making the font style different, colour, size, shape, and definitely making it bigger. I believe that everything we do is too small. Most people get very frustrated seeing lots of text on a page, and if the only way they get to answer questions is on a sheet of paper with small font size and a pen, then that's pretty boring and it's going to make you disengaged. It won't help with the questioning process. We need to think about how we can do it differently. Differentiation means using a range of tasks. So that means questioning you have to use lots of ways of doing it, and increase the pace and variety. So that means if you have time-bound questioning tasks and lots of ways of doing that, that will help meet lots of different needs. Delivering a number of different ways, but I think assessed in a number of ways as well. So as part of our reasonable adjustment under the Equality Act 2010, we are required to allow learners to respond to questions in ways other than writing. So that means it's not just the standard way. I know exams don't help with that, but certainly as part of the learning, we need to be able to allow our students and pupils to participate in ways other than writing, which is why we need to think about adding games and props. I was working in a primary school this morning doing some ADHD training, and they do it so well in primary school. They have all the bells and whistles to engage their pupils, and they have a love of learning when they're smaller, and as they get older we bring all those away. We stop having fun with our classes, and what happens is the older the student gets, the less engaged they become, and it's all about crossing the finishing line and no enjoyment along the way. So this last point, providing opportunities for students to respond, you can use voting cards. You can go online for things like that, where there's lots of games, and I've got some links that you can take away with that. But questioning tasks should be a variety of them, online, physical, voting, anything like that. Differentiated questioning, and this is another way of doing it really, really quickly. So we're supposed to, aren't we, make sure that we have some questions harder than others. And if you're nominating people to answer them, when you're doing your lesson plan, you could write 5 open questions which will get harder. And an easy way to differentiate is asking for a minimum number of words. You could say, I just want 1 word from you. I want 5. I want you to give me an explanation. You know, that's a very, very simple way to do it. And if you're nominating students to answer the questions, do that before you start your lesson. Write them down, progressively more difficult. But here's something which I find quite amusing. Sometimes we ask questions which don't tell us what we want to know, which aren't going to give us the feedback that perhaps we're looking for. And I've put 3 questions here which maybe would make you smile. Was that task easy or difficult? So if you ask that of a student and they say, oh, it was really easy, thanks. Yeah, it was really easy. And yet they get it wrong, then you're not finding out whether they A, knew the answer, and B, whether they were telling the truth that it was easy. So some pupils and students need you to guide them, to let them know. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being really easy, how was that question? Some pupils and students I work with can't do scales in numbers. They say warm or hot or cold. So, you know, is it really cold? Cold means you found it really difficult, and hot means you found it really easy. So are you warm? Have you taken your coat off yet? You know, things like that. So that's a more effective version of the question. Another one here, would you like to tidy up the classroom? That's not a question. No, that's not an option. So you don't ask, would you like to tidy up the question? Tidy up the classroom. The more effective version is, when you've tidied up the classroom, then you can go. That's not a question at all. Last one, have you had a good holiday? The answer to that was, oh yes, lovely, thank you. Whereas to promote a discussion, where did you go on holiday? That's the way you lead it. We know about our who, what, where, when, why, but that's another way. So sometimes we fall into the trap of not asking the right kind of question to determine what the answers need to be. What else have we got here? Now, Jeff Petty, a few of you may have heard of him, he says that one way to get engagement is to tell or ask a big question before you do the session. His belief is that the engagement is low because you're asking your students after they've read something, or after they've watched something, or after they've had a video. You're asking the questions after the event, so they got to get through this not knowing what the questions are going to be. And his resolve for that is that you would break it into 3 parts. So you'd start off by telling everyone what the questions are, then doing the thing, whether it's a discussion or a video, so that during that middle process, the learners know, I'm going to have to answer a question on that. So they've picked that up. And then right afterwards, you ask the questions again, and they're much more likely to participate and indeed answer. So whatever that middle bit is, start with the questions first, then go into that discussion, video, demo, presentation or task, and then answer the questions again. I think you'll have quite a big surprise with that. People like to know what they need to know, and that's quite good. So what about having a bit of fun? Every now and then I like to do things just sort of like lateral thinking questions. But here's one: digging dirt. How much dirt is in a round hole that's 7 feet deep with a diameter of 4.5 feet? So how much dirt is in that hole? And most often people get their calculators out or they start discussing it. And of course the actual answer here is that there's no dirt in it at all. It's a hole. But there, you know, there are so many things like that on YouTube, on Google. Just look up fun things. It helps to re-engage. It gives the students a brain break from whatever it is that they're doing, and then you can go back to asking or doing lots of different questions. Here's another recommendation: joannemilesconsulting.co.uk, an excellent website to go to. She has she's written lots of things about this. One of the things she's put on there: questioning for independent learning to create a professional learner, which is what we're asked to do, aren't we? Is to show the students the next topic that you're doing. So in the next lesson we're going to be doing X, Y and Z. I want you to come up with 4 questions that you want answered about this. So that's what you say to your students. When I first saw this, I tried it, and I do it most of the time now when I'm teaching. I don't have 100% success with it, but what does happen is that we get an engagement from those that do actually want to be, involved. And so those learners who do come back with 4 questions that they want answered, they'll start a discussion, because we'll start a discussion, and that kind of brings you into the next phase of learning. So you won't get 100% participation from that, but I think what you will do is improve upon people looking ahead at what the next bit is, thinking ahead instead of looking just today and what we're doing now. And one final thing here with the variety is there are so many ways to use questioning, and all of our students outside of the classroom engage in IT most of their waking and breathing life. So if we don't bring that into the classroom, we are denying them the opportunity to participate in a way that they are familiar and comfortable with. So be creative. At Christmas time, we always do a Kahoot quiz, and I don't mean at college, I mean at home. So if you go onto Kahoot, you can find lots of different quizzes, and people can just vote from their phones. You give them you can make your own quiz, and you just give them a number and they sign in with the number that they've got, and they can participate. I know that the rule in a lot of places is no phones, but what we're doing by not using phones is reducing the number of opportunities to participate. Then there's SurveyMonkey. That's quite easy. You can email questions out to your students on your Moodle or on their college email address and get them to answer the questions. It's just SurveyMonkey. It's free to use. Hot potatoes is always good. They've been going a long time. I know you need a license to use them, but they can do fill the gap and everything. Blockbusters are fantastic. We use doorbells. We get into Teams and use doorbells for questions, and you can completely make it your own, create all the questions yourselves. One way to get people up and out of their seats is to put flip charts around the room with post-it notes, and then you get a group discussion going and they go and put an answer on it. If you've ever been to any of Jeff Petty's training sessions, good for you, lucky you. I went to one a few years ago, and it was very inspiring, the way that he could manage a room full of more than 100 people, and it was very participative with questioning. Excuse me. So I've added a handout for you on here. So if you look at your screen, the control panel, there should be there that you can access a handout. And what it is, it's a cube. It's a series of cubes actually to make discussion cubes or learning cubes. So it's there and available for you to download yourself. If you want to get a cube template to make your own, then you can go onto my website, and under the resources tab you can drop down and pick up the cube template. There's a few other ideas there. Definitely have a look at that and rummage around and see what's there. But download the handout that's there. If you've got problems with that, then let me know and I'll make sure you get a copy of it. So I've got a couple of things that are going on here. Let me just have a check to make sure I'm covering. Oh, someone's got their hand up, which is very nice. I do like people to put their hand up rather than calling out the question. So let me just have a look at the question pane. Someone's got technical problems. I'm sorry about that if you can't hear anything. Well, don't worry. We will make sure there's a recording done of it. So actually, there's too many here for me to deal with because there's large numbers of people, and I apologise for that. But what I'll do is I'll get my lovely assistant to download all the questions and make sure that we answer them through the email, because we've got your details when you registered for the webinar. One last thing. If you want this sort of training in-house, you know, lots of people say they don't get motivational stuff as practitioners. We do this kind of training in blocks of 1.5 hours, and in some colleges where you've got, you know, thousands and thousands of students, there could be hundreds and hundreds of teaching staff who could really benefit from practical examples and some motivation to get your questioning up a ratchet, because we're so busy creating plans and trying to meet all the criteria that we forget about the bits that we can do differently. If you want us to come in, we can do 4 sessions in a full day, and we can take 30 people in a session. So that's a lot of people we can work through in one day, and we will bring all the sort of props and everything to you, make your own questions, activities, cubes. We discuss how you can do it and how you can relate it to your own area, your own subject. Get in touch if you're interested in having that, because I'm more than happy to send you some details about how you can access that. And it's nice and short, so it doesn't mean that you know it drags through. You can still fit it in. So one more thing, we've got a ADHD webinar coming up, which I will make sure you get your details of and how you can get in touch for that, how to link it and to register. Some of you may have already done so. But now is the time for any questions. Now, we're going to be booted off very soon because that's the way the software works. But if you've got something, a burning question about questioning, you can email me or you can add it now to the question section, and we will get back to you on it for sure. But our time space with the numbers that we've got here today is going to be running out in a few minutes' time. So normally I like to answer questions on the hoof, but there's just too many. Make sure you've managed to download the handout. Can I just have a quick show of hands? If you can click the put your hand up thing that you've managed to do it, then at least I know you've been able to. Fantastic. It's like a little emoji, a hand up. How amazing. Thank you so much for coming today, everyone, and do get in touch if you've got anything you want to know, and I look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Bye for now.